today, and no different, we've got, and for the listeners and viewers out there, this is going to be a great segment because we're focusing on two parts. We're focusing on annuities this morning, but we're also focusing on kind of planning ahead and how that can benefit you. And first, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Chris. Just glad to be. Nice to see the sunshine. Looking forward to warmer weather. So, looking forward to today's topic on planning.
Absolutely. I'll leave it up to you. Which do you want to start with first? Annuities or planning ahead? Take us through that if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think planning ahead. I think it's one of those things that we all kind of fight against. We know we should do, and then we're trying to make it practical.
Mhm.
And I'm not 100% expert in this space, but as the years go on, I think one of the sayings I like to tell friends and people in my life as well, it's not always what you do that's correct that you should do. It's doing what you shouldn't do,
Mm,
right? Sometimes in the planning space, it's like, okay, let's not do that because that doesn't work. So
absolutely.
I think in the planning space, it's just a matter of just, talking it through in terms of like, personal, professional, and everything in between. What does that really mean, look like to plan? And again, I'm still a work in progress, as we all are, and just trying to get better day by day.
Well, I had somebody tell me a long time ago that nobody is perfect. We always continue to learn, adapt, adjust, and sometimes we stumble, we fall, we have to pick ourselves back up. And I think that's truly important to understand. One of those things that planning ahead. Or factors that you had mentioned prior to us going on the air is the stress factor and reducing the stress factor. Take us through that and how important it is, and even maybe some suggestions for our listeners and viewers.
Yeah, I think in this space of stress, I think we're all dealing with stress and we're all busy. And I think one of it is just an understanding clearly that you're not alone, first of all, but even kind of more importantly, if you think about others, I think there's sometimes comes across that stress is something I own and I've got the worst stress compared to anybody else. And so anything I'm trying to do or get done, mine is worse than yours. And we see that from time to time. Yeah, I see it personally, but quite a bit professionally is that, you have no idea about my life. And, at times when you're dealing with, a business provider, somebody that you're hiring or working with, just kind of have an understanding that, we all are going through challenges of life and trying to work through some of the things that are happening in the economy in the world, and just everybody's in the same boat, so to speak, in terms of stress. So just, for me, what I try to do is just kind of have a sequence mostly of what I do in the during the day. In the morning I get up, and I you know uh, put my feet on the ground, I say a quick little prayer, I drink some water, I stand up, I make the bed. I mean,
Hmm.
if nothing else goes well in the day, and there's other things that are coming stressful, at least that's completed and the day is started on the right foot. So I think, and then how I work through the day, understanding that I want to have some consistency and have it on the calendar, but know that things happen.
Yeah.
Whatever it's going to be that comes at life, challenges at work or personally, just having this peace and knowing stuff's going to happen. And
Hmm.
this, how am I going to react? So much of it is how we react in our own mind and heart. And just having a peaceful sense that we're going to be able to work through it and we're going to be okay.
Well, and you bring up two points of many that I think is important to focus on, and that is uh, 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 understanding where others are at. You had brought up, I can't imagine how much stress I'm under, and so on and so forth. But not thinking about that other person and their level of stress could certainly be higher or as equal to what you're going through. And I think it's part of understanding others, and vice versa. I think we want others to understand what situations we're in or what level of stress we are in, and I think that helps with communication and expectation, as you mentioned this morning. Um, and also, I don't remember the last time that I had a day where something wasn't thrown in,
Right.
for and when we're going off on this branch or that branch. It's very difficult to have a day that starts and finishes the way that you want it to, I would assume.
Yeah, I think if one of the things I've learned, and it's as we all are down this path of trying to just be better humans, better people, better citizens, is trying to learn from those that have, first of all, have a positive attitude. They're not necessarily just successful financially, but they're just, you can tell at the core they're just good people.
Hmm.
Whether circles in our community or they're people at large out in the public domain, is just what are some of the attributes and things that they have that they're kind of living by in their world. And so for me, here's like when you say things that come at you, Chris, right? Because we're business owners. If you have a schedule and you're calendaring things, so as I plan things, I am intentionally making sure that I have gaps in appointments,
Hmm.
right? So at least a half hour to 45 minutes, if possible, in between scheduled appointments. And what happens in between is usually catch up. It
Hmm.
might be or a or it might be some other fire alarm. Is just trying to work through those. But what's nice when things are calendared and you're planning in advance is that that person or that meeting is coming. You are going to do that, and that gets you back on. And what happens is if you're in a situation where, let's say, it can be resolved later that day or the next day, it truly can,
Hmm.
is that you respectfully say to that person, hey, I've got something I got to get to right now at 9 o'clock this morning. I've got to go. And let's make another time that we can resolve this. Would later today be good, or tomorrow? Let's pick a time. Let's commit to it. Let's get it on the calendar. So what that does is you frees you up from that situation of that craziness in our planning. And we're planning then again, like we're going to be, and then it gives, here's what I love. It gives us that time to think about it and strategize and also just contemplate, where's that person come from? Where's that situation? How can we best work through that to make it, like Stephen Covey and, Dale Carnegie and some of these guys, like, where do we create these wins?
Yeah.
Win-win. So it's good for everybody to try to find those solutions. But if you don't have time in your schedule because you haven't planned it, it seems to go all haywire.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. If you are just joining us, we're talking with Aaron Doan from Aaron Doan State Farm Insurance. Part of our segment talking about planning ahead to help all of us. I mean, not only are we planning ahead to help ourselves, but also your coworkers, your family, your friends. If you're going out for a bite to eat, to make sure that you're there on time, and part of that process, or at least some of the focus today, is anticipating any challenges, traffic or weather, or something happens at the end of the day where you get a phone call that's that you have to take in some cases, or but anticipating those challenges, one of those areas that we want to talk about today. And also, uh, I think it goes hand in hand, and that is improved decision making, because you can sometimes not only anticipate the challenges by deciding, okay, I know that this is going to happen, and I'm going to do this to ensure it doesn't throw you off track, right?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of as you age and mature and life experience comes at you, you realize that as effective as you want to be, that most times meetings can run a little bit over. And even if you're a person that says late is being there on time, I love being around those people. So
Yeah.
then, if you're on time, you're late. Okay, right? So that's hard, right? It's super hard to do.
I remember that from Boy Scouts. If I can remember the exact term, it was if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're late,
That,
you're
that is a
late.
theme for sure. So I think that is just realizing as time goes on, like, hey, situations are going to go longer than you hope. Even again, like I said, with good planning and just anticipating these changes and challenges, and then just realizing that sometimes things don't start on time either. And so all you can do in that space is not to be demeaning, but encouraging, maybe talk about, let's say that that's a meeting that's a consistent meeting with a group of people, or maybe even one-on-one, is just saying, hey, let's make a point of both of us being here 10 minutes beforehand, and we'll both do that. So
Mhm.
you're not saying, well, hey, bro, I need you to be there on time. Come on, cut the crap.
Yeah.
Keep it positive, keep it light, and look for ways to let people, off the hook. But for next time, hey, let's both of us be there on time. And so I think those are challenges. So how does that roll into decision making? I think it just helps us to be able to foresee things that are going to happen and as we know it. So for instance, for me, during the business day, it's like I'm thinking about 2 or 3 days ahead. And okay, I've got 15 minutes. There's an element of this meeting coming up that I want to get into the system. I want to think about it and plan it, and I want to go ahead and get it entered in now. And what that does is it frees up, going back to what we talked about earlier, which is reducing stress.
Mhm.
If you're able to get some things done at work or at home in pieces, I always, an Aaron Donism is you can't eat an elephant all in one bite. So, how do you improve decision making? It's by taking things in smaller bites and over time and getting projects done, not all in helter skelter at the last minute. A lot of people, I hear it all the time, I work best under a lot of pressure and a deadline. 100%, but
Mhm.
break it up because you reduce stress and you get increased stress for others around you if you are just really scrambling to try to get something done. It does not help decision making.
Well, and especially if something is thrown on your plate while you're trying to
Yeah,
scramble to get that project complete.
yeah.
Uh, let's focus on the fourth prong of today, talking about planning ahead and the benefits of it. And one of the things that can be done is is focusing on long-term success. And I think that's part of the reward side of things. The hard work can pay off in many ways, and it's something that we want to make sure that we focus on during our entire life. Is if we do this, uh, do we have success from it? Are we going to be rewarded from it? Not necessarily from a pat on the back standpoint or a chip on the shoulder standpoint, but it's always great to set even small goals to achieve, right?
Yeah, I think, interesting enough is currently in a group of men here locally in Mason County, we're studying the book of Proverbs.
Mhm.
And Proverbs is about being wise, not being a wise guy, but using wisdom to be thoughtful, to be considerate, to understand that the world is bigger than just you, and to realize that we can't change everybody and make things exactly the way that we want, nor should we. It really is about the world together and helping each other be better people, get along. And through all this, it kind of leads into our topic of product today. But if you're trying to be wise and plan ahead strategically, you can have success by just establishing good steps over time, and not always trying to follow a get rich theme, quick. But just by being, I like to say, consistently persistent and persistently consistent. If you are really working hard every day, long term, you're going to have success by just being, keeping your nose to the grindstone day by day, getting things done, helping other people, and seeing the world as bigger than yourself. If you're serving other people day by day over a long period of time, you're going to have a lot of life success, and you're going to be considered a person that has wisdom, and a person that is one that you have opportunities to be with people, to encourage them, and you want to do that, and that's an exciting part to get to life when you get to do more of that.
For sure. Again, we're talking with Aaron Doan from Aaron Doan State Farm Insurance this morning. That brings us to our topic that relates or comes right back to, and even has part of the elements of our discussion in it, is annuities. And some people, before we went on the air, you were talking about had sort of maybe a bad taste in their mouth about it from the past. Let's start there, if you don't mind, kind of the basics behind an annuity, and we'll dive deeper if you don't mind.
Yeah, an annuity is considered really a reverse of life insurance. An annuities come from life insurance companies. And the history of annuities is that they were sold wrong for many, many years, inappropriately, where people didn't understand, Chris, that, we're here, I'm going to give the life insurance company a lump sum of money so that I can have money to live on and get a stream of income, just like Social Security, just like pensions. So what it does is you give the company a lump sum of money, and at some point you can create yourself income. And so, where did we get that before? Well, people know Social Security. You pass away, Social Security stops. And very similar things happen to pension. So, there were not only public pensions from the government, which most people still have and are still alive, but most private sector pensions are gone. They don't exist anymore, Chris. So, we're struggling currently in our market, in our communities, in our society in the US with just living on Social Security. It's becoming increasingly more difficult, if not impossible, especially if you have any debt. So what do annuities do on the positive side? Well, people are living a lot longer, Chris. And so what happens is if they've saved a little bit or you saved a good chunk of money, the issue is running out of money. And so, because what we call it in the financial advising world is basically longevity risk. So there's inflation risk, there's interest risk. This is another risk, is living too long. So how do you do that? Well, what happens is you create a stream of income for your entire life, and you can also give, that stream of income to a spouse or get a refund. And so, what it does in planning is when you're saving so hard in your 401k or in your IRA, at some point, some of your savings should be income based, creating a stream of income that you cannot outlive. And I'm not advocating for all of it, but some of it. If you look at the best plans for people, that's where it comes into play. Is people take this money and they put it into an account, what's called an annuity, and they create a stream of income. And the reason, again, for doing it now, even more so than when, 30 years ago, 35 years ago, when people were living in their 60s, in early 70s, is now so many people are living into their 80s and 90s, and they're going to run out of money, even if they saved a couple hundred grand. Maybe even if they saved a half a million, they've got to create a stream of income that they can't outlive to make sure they can have that couple Social Security income.
And there's a couple differences, and I know from just hearing, just listening to you over the last couple moments, you're looking for the long term, making sure that somebody is able to have that income, because you bring up a very important point. um, if you don't do something, if you don't do anything, you will probably run out of income, for sure, later in life. But there are immediate annuities and there are deferred annuities. What's the difference there? And do you lean towards one or the other?
So a deferred annuity is where you have some time to defer that growth. And so you're not paying taxes on the growth until you take it out. So it becomes a lot like an IRA. People are familiar with, a traditional IRA that's going to be taxed when they take it out, right? And so what this does is it does a very similar thing. You're allowed to grow the money compared to putting it into account you're taxed every year and you get a 1099 every year.
Mhm.
This is at least allowing you to defer that income, to defer paying taxes until later. Now, I have a client right now where we worked on their plan and we put everything into the computer, and it basically said that they needed to currently take about $700 of income, and that income is going to be live their whole life. She's projected based on her sister, her aunts, her mother, her grandmother to live into her 90s.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
this is going to pay her about 3 times the money she gives us over the next 30 years.
Wow.
And
Okay.
the plan went from 70% success probability to 87% success probability when we put her numbers in the plan by doing an immediate annuity,
Hmm.
take income next month. And so that's the plan for her, is immediately starting to take income.
Good information there, and thanks for explaining it that way. Uh, is is it an early in life decision? Is it middle aged? Is it more of an older decision? When are we deciding to talk about annuities?
I think it's a combination of what are you doing personally at work. So I'm always an advocate of starting at work first. So especially if your employer gives you a match. And I would highly recommend everybody listening to go to your match as soon as possible and stay at it. And here's why. If you're allowed to put 5% in and your employer will match 5%, it's 100% return of your money immediately. You put in a dollar, up to 5%, they give you a dollar.
Mm.
Where else are you going to get 100%
Yeah,
return?
absolutely. Yeah.
So it's super powerful to have good investments at work. After that, it's nice to have, if you don't have a Roth IRA, a lot of times people like to have a Roth. We can talk about that in a future time. But in this mix, deferring in an annuity space makes sense for people, especially people of income where they may have even maxed out their IRA, is they're looking for a way to save even additionally. And I get it. There's a lot of people not saving even in an IRA.
Mhm.
I 100% get that. Start an IRA again, but just realize that this is a solution at some point in your life, especially when it's dealing with income, you're going to want to consider as part of your plan. Most people, Chris, in this space would be looking at this when they get closer to retirement, maybe even catching up. But again, I'm an advocate of just each person being individual. What are their needs? What are their ability to save and desire to do so?
Well, and you've addressed a lot of maybe questions that people have in regards to an annuity, but sitting down with you and your team, obviously, that's an important step. But before we wrap up today, what about any sort of misconceptions? You started the segment talking about, from the past and how it was done back in history and maybe not the right way and now it's adapted and changed and maybe even perfected a little bit there. But is there some misconceptions that people have that maybe are listening right now or viewing and they're like, "Oh, no, I don't even wanna go, down that road." What can you say to them this morning?
Yeah, one of the things I say is that 100% there are surrender charges on annuities. And so you have to realize and understand clearly that years and years ago, people weren't clearly explained that. In today's society, Chris, the way that the regulatory bodies like FINRA and the SEC and the life insurance commissioners in each state, they are super regulatory in terms of documenting and getting signatures of understanding completely what you're buying. That wasn't the case 30 years ago.
Mm,
So people didn't understand surrender charge. What does that mean? Well, if you give us 100 grand and you want to take your money and move it somewhere else, well, you got to wait 6 or 8 years, which is fine if you have the time. Okay, so that's on the deferred annuity side. I would argue with people that, let's say, have a half a million or $1 million that they've saved and they're 60 years old, somewhere in that space. Well, if they are really healthy and their longevity in their family is really long, taking distributions just randomly out of your investments, you could be taking money when the markets are down. If you're not careful in making sure you have really low risk money set aside, you're taking in this volatile market, taking money out of your investments at the wrong time. And so, what the annuity does, again, for those that are skeptic, is it creates an income base that you cannot outlive. And what's changed in the last, especially 10 or 15 years ago, I even think my career started 22 years ago. Chris, most people at that time were living to about 70 to 72. I can't tell you the number of customers I have in their 80s and 90s,
Absolutely. Yeah.
healthy and doing well. And so some of those people that don't have this income stream from an annuity, they are starting to run out of money.
Hmm.
And so if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and even early 70s, this is a great time to consider getting some of your money set up in a monthly, quarterly income basis that you can use to live your life and not be so worried about all the things that are going on. In what, how, am I going to have money? I'm afraid to spend my money. Stop. Stop. Create a stream of income that you can outlive, not with all of your money, but with a part of it, whether that's 10% of your savings, 20 up to 50% or so. Still have money in your investments that will help with inflation, but create streams of income that you can outlive.
Hmm. Good information there. And you can break it down. I remember you saying something just a few minutes ago that you can actually put some of that data in a calculator or a form that will give some answers while you're talking with that potential person interested in the annuity. So to really give them some answers that they're looking for. We can't predict the future, but we can certainly put ourselves in the right steps or in the right position to not fall flat on our face in the future too, right?
And its system is Money Guide Pro, which 90% of the advisors around the country use. And entering this data in the software program is individualized to you, and it can be modified and changed.
Mm.
So we meet with you every 6 months or a year, whatever you would like to do. We're updating it based on your situation. So I have another customer who wanted to really retire at 62, and one of them is going to be able to, and the other one's going to need to work till 65 part time. And the wife said, "Well, I'll work part time too. How about we get two jobs locally and we'll make income?" And because of that part time income until age 65, their plan literally went from 68% to 82% probability success. So using the software, plugging in exactly how much they make, how much, what their debts are, what they've already saved in retirement, how much their Social Security benefit is going to be, plugging that all in, it's really powerful to see your life for the future all in a report on where you're at and where you need to be and what you need to do to change. And at first, they both stopped and went, "Oh, I got to keep working." And I was like, I tried to soften it and saying, not forever
Hmm.
and not full time, but just for a bit, make about between the two of you 35, 40 grand for the next 3 years, and you guys will be okay.
It's good advice there. This is great information, and I'm hoping and encouraging our listeners and viewers to give you a call, give your team, to reach out to your team, and start that conversation. And they can do that. How? What's the phone number?
Yeah, so our phone 231 757 3115. And you can also find us at ludingtoninsurance.com.
All right, fantastic. Aaron, we appreciate you focusing on two very important topics today to help all of us. And I think, and I hope that at the end of this conversation that our listeners and viewers will pull some information from it that will help benefit them. And I think the next step is giving you a call to make sure that they can advance the ball forward even more. Thanks for taking the time with us always, and we'll chat in a couple weeks from now. How's that?
Sounds great.
Yeah, thank you. It is 102.7 Mom FM.